Is no one interested in history?
SDCC, I'm not gonna let you stop me now!
Hello everyone out there in YouTube, it's me the Pandorica Opens, welcoming you to episode 9 of my Doctor Who action figure reviews. In today's review, as you can see, we are looking at the season 18 4th Doctor as played by Tom Baker in his final season costume, and the Regeneration 5th Doctor as seen in the beginning of Castrovalva, that was the San Diego Comic Con exclusive from a few years ago. As ever with this review, we shall begin by looking at the articulation. Now, the articulation for these figures is your standard articulation that we see on most Doctor figures. I'll just take off the scarf as it does hinder movement of the head. The head can turn, it can't do a 360 because the lapels of this coat completely stop it from moving. The arms can do a 360, but again the lapels might get in the way, so be careful if you do decide to twist the arms all the way around. 360 degree at the biceps, arms can bend, and he has wrist articulation. The legs can go in and out, it's slightly hindered by the coat again, they do bend. There's no thigh articulation at all, but there is articulation at the boots, which is very nice. And the torso it's very difficult because it's hindered by his coat again, but it can turn part of the way, but the back of the coat will stop it. Ooh, sorry, knocked over Peter Davis. Will knock over, I apologise, will hinder the movement of the waist. And that is basically the articulation for both of these figures. They are basically the same body, just different head sculpt. A note on the heads, both of these heads are on pegs, so you can't remove them. As no doubt the idea was, because this figure came out first, they thought, let's stick a Peter Davison head on, but let's make sure it's a peg so that they can't pull the head off this one and stick a Tom Baker head on top of it. So it's a crafty way of getting your money out of you, really. But I don't mind. I mean, I quite like having them as two separate figures. Now I shall go into the details of these two figures. As you can see, the head sculpt on this Tom Baker figure is very, very nice. It's quite different to the other Tom Baker figures, as during this time Tom Baker was getting to the end of his tenure. There were a lot of changes made to the show, new title sequence, new costume, new writers, producers, etc. And this time Tom Baker had basically had enough, and at the end of season 18 he did leave and therefore regenerate into Peter. So the head sculpt, it's a solemn head sculpt. It's probably the best sculpt they've done for Tom Baker, and because Tom Baker had been ill before they did this season, he looks a bit more gaunt. He's got more lines and more jowly, I think the word is, underneath his chin, and his hair is also not as rounded as it is on the other 4th Doctor figures. And the curls are beginning to go, and his hair is starting to grey, and they've done a really good job with this, because what they've done is they've taken the hair, painted it over more of a black rather than brown, and then given it a wash of grey to make his hair look older, make Tom look older. The scarf for this figure, I'll just remove it. It is much easier to remove than the other one because you don't have to take the head off to get it, and Now this is the Season 18 scarf. It's... ooh, Tom's fallen over. The scarf is the Season 18 scarf. It's the scarf that Tom Baker wore for that season and Peter Davison wore briefly in Castrovalva before he ripped it to part and unravelled it. It's one big piece of rubber. It's very similar to the other one, except now this is in the burgundy and purples and reds. Now the pattern isn't how it is in the story, in the season even, as it has had to be simplified, as this was a Forbidden Planet exclusive. They might have been able to do a better job if this was released en masse in other stores. So the pattern isn't exact. So if you're a stickler for detail, you might not like that. This scarf is hooped down below, a lot further down than the other scarves. This scarf was 25 foot if I remember correctly, but he did have scarves of various lengths for that season depending on what he had to do in a scene. I assume this is just, they've just taken a scarf and just made one big piece like this. This one is again painted on both sides, which is good, unlike the Pyramids of Mars scarf. It might not be able to see on camera, but it has the garter stitch detail like the other scarves, and the red tassels sculpted differently on each side, which is all very nice. And on the Tom Baker figure, the hair has been shaped to look slightly different. It's been shaped here so that the scarf fits very, very simply over the top like that, and that's the scarf. The costume is very, very good. It's just a plain shirt and a long burgundy red coat that he wore in that season with the large lapel. He's got a nice buckle detail on the back here, the pockets, the several rows of buttons, and they've made holes for the buttons as well. He's got his lapels here, and there's all sorts of creases along it. It's very, very nice. The shirt is the shirt he wore in that season. However, character options, for some reason, probably another vendetta against the 80s, have decided to hide the lapels of his shirt behind the collar. This also prevents you from seeing the question marks. I probably will not be able to show you this on camera, but if you have this figure to hand, peel back the coat a little bit and look inside. I'll try with a torch. No, I can't quite get it, but if you peek in there, you will see that the question marks were sculpted on, but they're not painted. So obviously they were probably thinking of getting bits of plastic and sticking them out over the top of the coat, but then they changed it. Whether that was due to costs or because just a last minute change, who knows. And also, Tom Baker should also be wearing his waistcoat, which they haven't done on this figure. Now, they did release another figure later on in the Keeper of Traken set and in the Castrovalva 5th Doctor Regeneration set with the waistcoat on, so that's not too bad. But he should have the red and gold waistcoat on, as he did wear that most of the time. His trousers are standard. They're red. They're puffed up here because of the boots. And they're very nice. They're just red and they've got all sorts of creases. And the boots are the brown boots that Tom Baker wore, as he didn't like the socks and shoes he originally came with. And these are his boots, I assume, and they've just sculpted them on very nicely. It looks like they could pop off and they could stick a sock and shoe on for another figure, which might be a variant they release in the future. And that is basically it for the costume and this figure. Possible variants, they could do the Leisure Hive version with his hat on. I think they were planning to do that in the 11 Doctor set too, but that's been pulled now, so that's a shame. And of course maybe the waistcoat and the socks and shoes, if they ever get around to doing that as well, which that would be an interesting little variant for Season 18 Tom, as there aren't many differences in Season 18 to his costume. It's all one colour really, and it stayed like this for the majority of the time. I will now very quickly move on to the 5th Doctor Regeneration from San Diego Comic Con, as there are minor differences to this figure. The 5th Doctor Regeneration version of this figure is very, very nice. It's basically the same body, so I won't go into details of costume and such. I'll start with the face sculpt. I'll just remove his scarf again. It's a very, very good sculpt of Peter Davison. This sculpt would actually fit the Castrovalva Peter that they released in Wave 1, or a standard Season 19 Peter for Castrovalva, as his hair was this colour. It's darker than the standard Peter Davison hair, and it was this length for Castrovalva. And the face sculpt, I believe, is a little bit better than on the other one. It looks very, very nice. And again, it's a peg, so you can't pull the head off. And it's all very nice. They've given it a brown wash and some blondes over it, and that highlights the darker colours. As you can see, it's shaped again at the bottom so that the scarf can just hook nice and simply onto the back. The only other major difference between this figure and the Season 18 Tom is, if I just get two figures, you might not be able to see so well on this camera, is that on the back, there we are, you can just about see it, there is a lot of green grass stains on his back. It's been painted in a kind of glossy green over the top of the purple, and what that's meant to signify is basically the moment in Logopolis, that famous moment where the 4th Doctor is hanging from a pipe or a piece of wiring and goes and lands like that onto the ground, and then he subsequently regenerates into Peter, and Peter is still wearing the costume, minus the boots, which are replaced with sock and shoes, because Tom probably took the boots back. But yeah, the paint work here, I'm not sure why they did this. It gives it a little bit of variation, it's very nice, but I don't think you get this much grass stains from just landing on the grass, because you do fall flat like that. So that tends to happen if you just slide on grass. Anybody who's ever run around as a child will know, state the truth in that. But I don't mind it, it's quite nice. And if you did want to just have Peter with a clean coat, I'm sure you could just boil and pop the head off and stick it on that figure for the Season 18 Tom. But that is basically it for this figure, and basically it for the review. Final thoughts. These two figures are certainly worth getting. This figure alone is an exclusive. You can get this in Forbidden Planet. My local store has quite a lot of these in stock, surprisingly, considering it's an exclusive. And Season 18 Tom can be bought with the K9. It's not a classic K9. It's a Series 2 K9 if you've bought new series figures that came with Sarah Jane, Rose, and a remote control version that came with the 10th Doctor figure. So you can get that as well. Variants wise, well, there is a variant available in the Keeper of Trachis set of the 4th Doctor. It's just minus the coat. I'll just show you here the Castrovalva 5th Doctor. This is the same for the Keeper of Trachis. It's just basically this figure with that Tom Baker head and this body with a few extra accessories. This is the 5th Doctor. They've just swapped the head again. As you can see, these are the lapels that are supposed to be on that shirt, and this is the waistcoat he should be wearing. The only other thing to note with difference-wise with this one, as I will go into detail on this one in another review, the only difference is with this figure you get a scarf that is painted in a gloss finish rather than a matte finish, which is quite nice. Just a little bit of variation, although it's not too much of a change. The scarf pattern's still the same. But that's a variant you can get along with the Master's TARDIS and several other figures. And that is basically it. So thank you for watching this review, guys. And tune in to my next review, which will be a Series 5 and possibly a Series 6 variant of the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith. So thank you for watching this episode, guys, and I shall see you in my next Doctor Who action figure review.